Let's review fractions, decimals, and percents. Here we're going to change these decimals into percents. Now the word percent means out of 100. So if we look at our first decimal, we can read that out loud as 65 hundredths. 65 out of 100. Okay, so it's already out of 100, so that makes it a percent. It'd be 65%. With the 0.3 or 3/10, you can add in your own zero, so it's 30 hundredths. We write it as 30 over 100, 30 hundredths, and if it's out of 100, that's automatically the percentage, so it's 30%. How about 1.5, 1 and 5/10? You can add your own zero, and you would have 1 as a whole number, and 50 hundredths. So what are we talking about here? Well, the whole number of 1 would be 100. And then if we have another 50 hundredths, that's another 50%. So we'd have a grand total of 150%. Now some people also look at this saying, oh, okay, so we're just multiplying by 100, which means we're moving the decimal 2 places to the right. We can do the opposite when going from a percent to a decimal. We're actually going to divide by 100, and where that ends up being moving the decimal 2 places to the left. So 4% is 0.04 hundredths, which makes sense because 4% would be 4 out of 100, or rig it out loud, 4 hundredths. So 2% would be 2 out of 100, 2 hundredths, which would be a 2 in the hundredths place value, so you can read it out loud, 2 hundredths. That's the same as moving our decimal 2 places to the left. So with 72%, we move it 2 places to the left, and it's 72 hundredths. 243% would become 2 and 43 hundredths. Now let's change these decimals into fractions. So we can just read it out loud. We get 3 and 45 hundredths because the 5 is in the hundredths place value. So we write it over 100 and then we simplify. 5 goes into both. 5 is a factor of both, giving us 9 over 20. 3 and 9/20. Pause the video and do the next two. So 2 and 3/10 would be 2 and 3 over 10, which is 2 and 3/10. It's already simplified. 52 hundredths would be 52 over 100, which we would then simplify. We could divide by a factor of 4 and get 13 25ths. So we're really using our place value here and seeing where the last digit is in. Okay, how about changing a fraction into a decimal? Well, we remember that that bar right here, the fraction bar, means we're dividing. The numerator divided by the denominator. So dividing 5 divided by 8, you'll end up with 625 thousandths. Pause the video and try the next one on your handout. Taking the numerator 5 divided by 4, you end up with 1 and 25 hundredths. Check to make sure this makes sense. This is greater than 1. Is our fraction greater than 1? Yeah, because the numerator is larger than the denominator. Now one way to change a fraction into a percent would be to divide the numerator by the denominator and then to move your decimal over 2 places. Multiplying by 100 is the same thing as moving the decimal to the right twice. I'm going to show you another method that works if you have compatible numbers. So instead of having it out of 25, I want it to be out of 100. Then I know it's a percent. 25 as the denominator, we can use equivalent fractions here and say multiplying by 4 gets us from 25 to 100. So whatever we do to the bottom, we must do to the top, and we get 20. If it's out of 100, that's automatically our percent, 20%. Okay, pause the video and change 4/20 into a percent. Try this method. Okay, now you know the fraction bar means divide. You could have divided 4 by 20. You would end up with 0.20 and then move the decimal twice. Or you could use compatible numbers or equivalent fractions. We want it to be out of 100 instead of 20 because then it would be a percent right here on top. And we take 20 times 5 to get to 100, so whatever we do to the bottom, do to the top. And 4 times 5 is 20. So we end up with 20%. What about percents to a fraction? Well, remember, percents mean out of 100, so there it is, 103. If it's got a percent symbol, just place the entire thing over 100. Check to see if it's simplified, and you're good to go. Now you try the 12%. Well, if it's a percent, then you place it over 100. And then we're going to simplify all of our fractions, so we divide by a common factor, and we get 3/25.